And welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Do me a favor, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. I'm Johnny Venerable, joined as always here on this, I wouldn't say robust Tuesday, Mr. Bo Brock, but we got some stuff to talk about, stuff we're excited about.
This is an eerily quiet offseason. I mean, this has gone beyond anything I think you and I have ever seen covering this team. I mean, there is absolutely nothing going on. We need to bring back the old what was it? You were playing it a couple weeks ago.
What's that?
The wheat that was just kind of blown across the
old... Oh yeah. I think I have that still because I was Leah, producer Leah's got that for us because gosh darn it, this is still relevant many weeks after the fact. I said I was going to retire it after the Cardinals signed Will Hernandez, and then people were like, that doesn't count, and I'm like, you're probably right. So save for maybe a Julio Jones post-draft or a Jadeveon Clowney, I think that is going to roll right into training camp. Pending a time move. But the good news is, Mr. Bo Brock, is we are, I want to say like less than 3 weeks away from the NFL draft. We're super excited about it. We're going to be hosting a party April 28th, the first round at the Ainsworth, with special guests, as it was broken yesterday on PHNX Cardinals Live by the GM Saul Bookman. Byron Murphy, starting cornerback for the Cardinals, will be there hanging with myself, Bo Brock, Damian Anderson, of course, Frank Sanders. Yeah.
Downplaying a huge announcement. It just kind of lost over your redemption story that plans to go down on.
No, that's headline number one, right?
That is headlines. It's like trying to drop news on a Friday night that Byron Murphy Jr., CB1 for the Arizona Cardinals, is going to be out there at the Ainsworth. Like, not only is it going to be Johnny Venerable, not only is it going to be Damian Anderson and Frank Sanders and myself, it's going to be Byron Murphy Jr., the Arizona native, out there hanging out with us.
Would be very fitting. This is not my preference if they took a certain cornerback from the University of Washington, Trent McDuffie. Maybe we could get some live reaction on air, but we digress. It's going to be great. He's going to be out there shaking hands, signing autographs. We'll have much more information on our draft party in the coming days and weeks leading up to April 25th. But today is a primer of all days. Bo and myself, we consider ourselves draft savants. We meticulously go through top 100 charts, and for the Arizona Cardinals, their positional depth chart. We thought we'd spend this first segment today breaking down the Arizona Cardinals depth chart, positions of need that are obvious, and then maybe some that aren't as obvious. So, Mr. Bo Brock, I'll kick it to you first. Biggest glaring hole as you look at the Arizona Cardinals 53 today.
Yeah, I think the biggest glaring hole is something that if you've tuned into the show or if you haven't, you know what they are. It's wide receiver, right? Opposite DeAndre Hopkins. It's edge. And probably, the number 3 is probably the most interesting debate about this roster, Johnny, because some people would say cornerback, and then the others would say maybe the teeth of that defensive line because, man, was their Achilles heel. That run defense last year was brutal. So why not get a big beefy guy in the middle of it and maybe slow down opposing ball carriers? So that's probably, and it's not a raging debate. We're not going to bore you for 30 minutes with that. But I would probably say that looking at how the draft board could fall, the Arizona Cardinals, defense in the middle of the defensive line is a very intriguing option for them.
I would agree with those. I would say receiver for me, just because the offense hasn't been taken care of yet this offseason, outside of internal signings being Zach Ertz, James Conner. I think the offensive line could need some attention, but for me, first and foremost, it's the receiver position opposite DeAndre Hopkins. And goodness, I mean, the Cardinals have spent a second-round pick, I think equates to like 4 drafts in a row on receivers if you count the D-Hop trade dating back to when Christian Kirk first became an Arizona Cardinal, which is crazy to think about. So we went from Kirk to, was it Andy Isabella, to D-Hop, to Rondell Moore. Like, they're going to spend yet another top 50, top 60 pick on a receiver. I would say it feels like that's where we're trending, Bo Brock. And in my opinion, taking the pulse of the fan base on Twitter, social media, our website, gophnx.com, member Discord, become a member, hang out, talk some draft with Bo and myself. Receiver feels like the position everybody wants. It's the sexy position. It's the position that right now is trending to be a top position in the NFL. I think people are scorned, Bo, from no CeeDee Lamb a couple of years ago. I think people are scorned. Last year they wanted a couple of the kids that from the SEC didn't make it to pick 16. Goodness, they didn't even make it really out of the top 12. And so is this a redemption year for that position unit for the Cardinals, considering it's just D-Hop and Rondell Moore?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as I pointed out yesterday, I tweeted this out as far as the QB manual that they have from Pro Football Focus, which is a great read, by the way. I don't know if you've checked it out. AJ Green, every key statistic, every key moment that you look from a passer, AJ Green was the top targeted wide receiver for this Arizona Cardinals team. And AJ Green at 33 years old, his career resurgence is nice, 800 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he has no business being the top target for any quarterback in the league, in 2021. So yeah, that remains an option. And we're going to look at a mock draft. Jason Reid, formerly of the Draft Network and now ESPN, did it. He did every team 7-round mock draft for ESPN.com. And he does not address wide receiver in this draft. So you have to imagine that if the Arizona Cardinals aren't going to go through the draft to do that, that a guy like Julio Jones, Will Fuller, I don't believe has been picked up yet. He's still available. But every single one of those guys, Johnny, just like AJ Green, I mean, you talk about red flags. There's red flags all over everybody available now in the free agent market. So there's no perfect option for the Cardinals outside of maybe drafting a wide receiver. So I think we're both in agreement here. Wide receiver, that room, it's if they go with the status quo right now into the 2020-22 season, what are we doing here?
What we're doing, we're going to get a full season from Zach Ertz. I think we don't want to downplay the significance of a guy who I think could have 800 plus receiving yards in this offense next year with the amount of targets he got. He was the number 1 targeted tight end in the NFL after his trade. And I don't think that's an albatross. I think that's the way the direction of Kingsbury's offense wants to go. But I'm with you. I mean, outside of D-Hop, Rondell Moore, and Antoine Wesley, who I really love as a 4th receiver, being able to mix and match his size inside and out. You've got a lot of Greg Dortch. Andy Isabella is still on this roster for some reason. Andre Basilia. Those are not NFL caliber receivers today that you want on a contending team. And while it would be nice to be able to get a Julio Jones post-draft and you're assured that you're going to get 15 games healthy and 8 to 10 touchdowns, anybody would sign up for that today. He's got, I'm sure, competing offers. He wants a multi-year deal, which I know the Cardinals do not want to do. You would, Bo, to your credit, you've been saying like the most valuable thing right now is to get one of these receivers on a 5-year deal where you pay them next to no money. Yeah,
and I see everybody in the chat. Rafa talking about top 3 pick. AJ Green is a must to bring back, and I think it's got to be a draft pick and a veteran to add to that group. You just really have to do it. And I feel like with the wide receiver position we've seen, and it feels like this organization should know this by now, that you can't just flood that room with numbers and you'll benefit from it down the line. But I feel like edge rushers, you can somehow get away with that. If you flood the pass rush group, the front 7 with enough guys and enough bodies and enough athleticism and physicality, that you can get away with that and your sack numbers won't deteriorate to where you're not competitive. I just think, when you look at the 2 glaring needs here, with 23, you're sitting there with it. That's going to be your best opportunity to really bolster this roster, to give Kyler Murray the weapons necessary to compete in still one of the best divisions in football.
A lot of people showing AJ Green love in the chat, which I'm surprised about, because if you took a pulse of the fan base after the season and the non-factor he was specifically against the LA Rams in that playoff game, I mean, he looked toast, done. I mean, you say the same to a certain extent with Christian Kirk. He just got, $1 billion from the Jaguars. So I think the Cardinals, it's clear, if they're going to be competitive and if they're going to make the playoffs next year, they need DeAndre Hopkins. Point blank. That's a non-starter. You're going to pay him almost $30 million on average the next couple of years. He has to be one of your better players. But in today's NFL landscape, you got to have multiple guys that can be difference makers catching the football. I do like, I'll go back, Hero in the chat said, I like Justin Ross from Clemson, guy who's 6'4", 205, elite hands, seems like a perfect fit for Kyler. That's probably more of an option the second round, as he mentions here. So, Ball, kick it back to you. You think the Cardinals are better served going defensive line, be either tackle or edge rusher in the first round and receiver in the second, or you flip the script, take one of these early wideouts at 23, and then hope that a quality defensive lineman falls to you in the second round?
I'll continue to pound the table for the wide receiver. And, it's interesting when you look at just the history of wide receivers drafted and, who's going to pan out, especially if you're taking what's going to be considered the 5th, 6th best prospect at that position. But I just think that the need is so glaring, and these guys they're ready. And then also, I hear a very respected, maybe the most respected draft expert out there in Daniel Jeremiah, where he likes 20 of these edge rushers. And I'm not saying like they're one of them's going to come in and you can go 20 deep and they're all going to be Chandler Jones. That's not what he's saying. But as far as what they're going to bring to the table, as far as you can put them in positions to just say, hey, go get the quarterback. You can get valuable snaps from those guys. And I think that you'd be better served doing that and looking for that guy at 55 than you would be at 23. Because as we mentioned yesterday, and I love the points that Damian Anderson was making for George Karlaftis, but I think that the drop-off from the first tier of pass rushers to maybe the second and third tiers is pretty significant. So why would you take at 23 the second tier when at the third tier in the second round it isn't going to be that big of a drop-off from second to 2 to 3? So if I didn't lose everybody by talking in circles, I hope you agree with me.
I do agree with you. And I think, okay, so the Cardinals pick, everybody help me out. Second round, they pick 58, 56, 55, almost there. So if you opt to not take a receiver at 23, here's what you're probably going to be looking at, assuming that certain guys don't get overdrafted. You could be looking at a Sky Moore at 55, maybe a David Bell out of Purdue, and Alex Pierce out of Cincinnati. Is that doing it for you? Maybe a Jalen Tolbert out of something called South Alabama. But you could get an edge rusher of note from a quality university at 55. I love the kid from USC, Drake Jackson's funny. They got Drake London and a Drake Jackson at USC. The kid, go ahead.
DJ Daniel Jeremiah said, if you're looking for a guy who could best become a Chandler Jones type, as far as just how his measurables, his size, his athleticism, that's Chandler Jones. That's the Chandler Jones of this draft.
Mathis, the kid out of Alabama, be a quality defensive tackle. You know what you're getting with these linemen from the SEC. Sure, their ceiling might not be, I'm an all-pro for the next 5 years, but I'm not going to embarrass myself. And sure as hell they can play the run. They've maxed out their ability to do that under Nick Saban. Kid out of Houston, Logan Hall. You go through the list, Bo Brock, and I feel like we put such a premium now on receivers. Not that defense is not important, and we're going to get to Mr. Reid's mock draft and why I've got so many issues with it. But in 2022, we're going to see probably 6 receivers at least go in the first round. I think that's fair, right? Of 32 picks. I don't know I'm not a mathematician. I don't know what percentage that is. It's a lot, right? It's going to be more than quarterbacks, we would assume. It's going to be more than, I would say, 80 to 90% of the positions outside of maybe tackle. So if you think of it like that, okay, well, then it's going to be pick clean come the second round. Whereas I just feel way better about finding a rotational defensive end, defensive tackle who I know could sit behind J.J. Watt and Zach Allen and still get reps, because you need how many interchangeable pieces at defensive line. Guys get gassed. We know Watt and Allen both have injury histories. And then on edge rusher, I'm just going to say this one time, we'll move on this show. I'm not going to harp on it. Vance Joseph has just ill will of playing young linebackers. Now that's on the inside, but they brought Devon Kennard back for a reason. They gave Dennis Gardeck not starting money, but rotational money. So if you take an edge rusher, either at 23 or 55, they are not starting week 1. Unless they have a generational camp, they are not starting over one of these veterans for Vance Joseph. You take any one of the receivers we're going to harp on throughout the next 2.5 weeks, they are the Y to Hopkins X with Cliff Kingsbury. You'll have a hard time convincing me that that's not the case.
Absolutely. And Jalen in the chat, he's saying at 55, he likes George Pickens from Georgia, Alex Pierce, and Justin Ross. We're seeing his name out of Clemson. He coming off an injury. It's like these guys have their red flags as well. And I feel like, once you get past this tier 1 of wide receivers, which I think is deeper than the tier 1 of edge, I think that you're best served as far as if you're going to find an impact, coupled with the fact that Cliff is going to probably try to feed this guy like he tried to feed Rondale Moore early in his rookie season before he fell off. I think that they'd be better suited to do that. And especially get that extra year on the contract that you can couple in with Kyler Murray making all that money, because it's going to happen soon, making $40+ million and taking up 16 to 17% of your salary cap. If you can get a guy that's a wide receiver 2 caliber prospect, I like Treylon Burks way better than I like George Pickens. George Pickens seems like, look, he can be a one-trick pony for you. He can be a guy that can go get it on a deep ball, but I love Treylon Burks with the ball in his hand in any situation. So if you can get a Burks, if you can get, I don't know if Olave will be there at 23. You probably have to do your homework on Jahan Dotson, and it sounds like they're doing that. That you could find a guy that can be a playmaker immediately in this offense. You'll be better off than going and kicking the tires on maybe a Julio Jones at 32 years old, 33 years old.
I got a text message right before the show started that says that their interest in Dotson is real. So take that for what it's worth. So everybody do your homework on this young man from Penn State. You could do way worse at pick 23. And if you're getting, again, Emmanuel Sanders for the next 5 to 7 years, yes, sign me the hell up for that. In a league where you have to be explosive in the passing game. Bo Brock, I'll pose this question to you because I saw this from my good buddy Blake Murphy ahead of the show today. 2 Cardinals under contract on the offensive line post-2022, that being Josh Jones, who's a backup tackle, and, of course, the center Rodney Hudson. Would you be surprised to see them force an offensive line pick at 23, a la DJ Humphries out of Florida, I think at 25, 26, knowing that, okay, like, unless they have a banger camp, Zion Johnson could beat out Will Hernandez, but probably not going to play a lot year one. Would you be all right with that?
Would I be okay with it? I think that's the inside linebacker. I think that's the Zaven Collins surprise pick of this draft. I think that's where that position this year.
That over corner, you feel like?
Yeah, I do. But at the same token, when I look at Steve Keim's draft history, nothing tells me that he call it naive. He believes he can go out and get these vets on these bargain basement deals and just plug and play guys. That's just his philosophy. I feel like he would rather allocate funds towards the fun positions, the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, the running backs, and the edge rushers and the corners than go out there and have to utilize one of his first round picks in an offensive line. Do you think he felt burned from Jonathan Cooper not panning out? Jonathan Cooper, who came out of the gate strong before he broke his leg. He seemed like he was supposed to be the safest pick in that draft, and he was a bust for the Arizona Cardinals at guard.
I feel like he's come to a realization that the position of guard is interchangeable. He's been burned not only by Jonathan Cooper, you could argue Mason Cole. Yeah. There was another guard mixed in there that really never amounted to anything. I think, goodness, another Big Ten yeah. He hasn't been able to hit on an offensive lineman outside of DJ Humphries, right?
Right.
Sometimes you just draft with what you're good at. And as much as I would not want this organization to take yet another corner defensive back, like that's the only position they draft well. You can make an argument, right? Patrick Peterson, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, Antrell Roll, Budda Baker, Tyrann Mathieu. They hit on those positions, right? Yeah. Where do they miss on? Outside of Larry Fitzgerald, not great at receiver, right? Outside of Kyler Murray, historically not good at quarterback. DJ Humphries is an outlier amongst offensive linemen, right? So all that to say, I do think that if we're playing in a sandbox of is the talent matching the pick, that was the issue with Zaven Collins last year. A lot of people probably not diehard draft nuts saw Zaven Collins as maybe like a fringe first rounder, where most people, Tony Pauline of the Draft Network said, like, he's going top 20. And he did, but he wasn't the sexy pick. Like Zion Johnson and Tyler Lindenbaum at pick 23 is a really good pick for stability on the offensive line and protecting your quarterback. But it's not a sexy pick that's going to get the fan base energized, especially if he doesn't play over Will Hernandez that first year. But you can also count on Rodney Hudson, just Pugh. They've all been hurt, right? So you're probably going to see an infusion of youth and development up front anyway. But Kugler's a little bit like Vance Joseph, where it's like, I want my veterans. I want my guys who are gritty. Give me people in their mid to late 20s, early 30s. I don't want these babies. So I just give everybody to Cliff. Like, I say what you want about Cliff Kingsbury. Like, he implemented Kenyon Drake and James Conner and these receivers. Antoine, he did it seamlessly. He implemented Zach Ertz. Like, I know they're all different ages, but he's more flexible than people give him credit for. Is he perfect? No. Do his schemes drive us nuts with the horizontal passing? It's terrible. He's got to fix that. But I feel like of all the coaches on the roster, the head coach is best suited to say, I like this guy. I can plug him and play him week one. And we're just going to see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think that's a huge part of this entire argument when you start to try to mock people or prospects to this team. And and try not to make the same mistakes over and over again. Yeah, Jose making a great point there. Chaim isn't willing to sign long-term contracts. We have 1 to 2 year big pay contract free agents. If we sign some of these rookies long-term, we'd probably have money like the Rams. Rams, I don't even think that they play in the same salary cap rules as everybody else.
They do not, no.
But yeah, it's just he's got his philosophy, and it seems like you can kind of pin him for a couple of these prospects. Now, one of the guys, speaking of Daniel Jeremiah, he had Wyatt, from the big tackle from Georgia, as a Steve Keim special. He said that he would be kind of infatuated by the kid. And
I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't mind that either.
I think that's exact. He's been yearning for an SEC defensive lineman since Quinnen Williams, when he had to take Kyler Murray. He wanted Derek Brown from Auburn, couldn't get him, took Isaiah Simmons. This would not surprise me at all. And I mean, as much as we want a pass catcher, that's our pick. Let's Bo and I are on the record, right? Like, if there's one thing this defense has been missing since Calais Campbell left, it is a big man who can push the pocket from the interior. They've had edge rushers, right? Had great safety play. They've had good inside line. They have not had a badass 25-year-old that can get you 5 to 7 sacks and make life hell for Stafford and Russell Wilson once upon a time. That's what Calais Campbell did. That's what Darnell Dockett did. And it's been too long.
Yeah. I mean, if Devonte Wyatt, or even his teammate at Georgia and Jordan Davis, who's more of a rotational guy, if they're on the board at 23, we're seeing Steve Keim look like he's at Blake Shelton's concert in Country Thunder again. He's throwing up the horns and he said, "Let's make the pick. Let's go get my guy."
I love the big men from the SEC because, again, like, you feel like it's just a safe way to go.
They don't.
You're telling me I'm going to get a defensive tackle that played on a generational defense that won the Natty and was dominant every game outside of one, the SEC championship game? Sign me up for that. A defensive line that pushed around Nick Saban's bread and butter, his offensive line. NFL AZ Cardinals in the chat says Isaiah Simmons wasn't a bad pick. I swear I'm not pivoting to rip Isaiah Simmons today. It's been our coaching philosophy. Hicks saying coaches need to trust these rookies says it all. Did Jordan Hicks say that recently? Maybe this is an older quote. Bo, do you know where this came from?
Yeah, I don't know that quote, but maybe. I mean, I'm sure Jordan Hicks wasn't too pleased with how things went down as far as how he was handled in his final season as a Cardinal.
Somebody's saying, Sly saying in the chat, trade Kingsbury to move up in the draft, then go get Harbaugh in a higher pick. Sly, I love you, brother. Jim Harbaugh. I would love Jim Harbaugh. We should just officially address this because Sly brings this up every chat. Bo and I at least I'm a Harbaugh enthusiast. I love Jim Harbaugh. I think he'd be great here. I don't think he's coming back to the NFL. If the Vikings, that was kind of his last hurrah, he said. I don't even know if he'd want to coach the Cardinals either.
Jim Harbaugh? Yeah. I mean, khaki's a little too warm for the desert. I don't know.
Khaki shorts? Khaki shorts?
Get some Walmart khaki shorts. I don't see Jim Harbaugh being a fit with this organization. You
think he'd have fitted khakis 4-seamers like me, or you think he'd have those big boxy ones that go past your kneecap?
Gotta have the pleats, gotta have the big box. Yeah, he's gonna look like old 1990s baggy khaki shorts. It's not a good look for anybody.
I would not gamble on Harbaugh coming back to the NFL, but you should gamble.
Look,
go ahead.
I mean, final thing is, as far as Cliff Kingsbury, let's keep it. Can you imagine if you had a job and you succeeded and improved in your job each and every year, like in the criteria that matters, and then you got fired? Like, if you did your job to the best of your ability, you succeeded with the criteria that was outlined for you. It was as far as wins and losses, improving the offense, and then people would say, well, you didn't finish as strong as you needed to, and they said, we're going to let you go. Would you say that? Yeah, that's fair. It's not. It wouldn't be. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury has improved each and every year. The team drastically improved offensively. He took over one of the worst rosters ever. I don't think, I'm not going to sit here and die in Cliff Kingsbury Hill.
Yes,
but
you are.
I think the guy deserves a little bit more credit than he gets from this fan base.
Marty Schottenheimer was fired after winning 14 games his last year in the NFL. It happens in the NFL. But I agree with you. And also, if you fire Cliff Kingsbury, who are you getting? That was always my biggest pushback. Like, who would want this job? The situation with Kyler and Keim like somebody comes in like Jim Harbaugh is going to want personnel control. Jim Harbaugh's not going to want to deal with all this extracurricular with Kyler Murray, which we don't think is a big deal. Like Cliff is kind of uniquely positioned to handle all of this. Like he gets along with his GM. He has influence clearly with the Isabella pick, among others, and the Kyler Murray pick. And then also he's got his agent is the same one that represents Kyler Murray. Josh Hunt saying, I don't think we should be giving up on Kingsbury for that exact reason. These two podcast hosts are not giving up on Cliff. Hey, how does he do against the division? He went 4-2 against the division last year. I can hang my head on that.
He's just his father is Sean McVay. That's the biggest problem.
That's true. What else is true is you can make bank tonight. DraftKings Sportsbook app. NBA play-in action begins in just a matter of hours. Get ready for the biggest tournament of the year, the NBA playoffs. And, of course, with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, new customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets instantly. You clinch a win no matter what. All DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also bet on NBA hoops. Same game parlays. Combine multiple bets from the same game from an even bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. Plus, for each day of the play-in, today and tomorrow, get a risk-free bet. I still need to go do that. Up to $10 if your same game parlay doesn't hit. Well, mine are going to hit. It's a call to action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code PHNX. Bet $5 on any NBA team. Win their game during the play-in tournament and get $150 in free bets. That's promo code PHNX at the DraftKings Sportsbook app, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Reminder, 21 and over. Arizona only. Gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEPS. New customer only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details.
Do we have time for me to tell us about our brand new partner?
Yeah.
OGs. Welcome OGs brands into the PHNX family. We love OGs. OGs is one of Arizona's first original scratch-made cannabis kitchens and is dedicated to creating innovative and memorable cannabis-infused products that flavor life's journey. Quality of their products stem from the combination of accurate dosing and amazing flavor. Edibles, not a one-size-fits-all product, which is why OGs is proud to offer a wide range of products for all demographics, all preferences. Their motto, Johnny, flavoring life, and it's something we can all get behind, especially when it's a tropical flavor. Their tropical fruit flavors, it's a mouthful, and it includes guava, strawberry, kiwi, raspberry, orange, and pina colada. If you're interested in trying the amazing, delicious variety of flavors, you never turn down pina colada flavors. Brands has to offer. OG's Brands has to offer. Go to ogbrands.com. That's OGEEZ brands.com. Find OGs near you.
I feel like producer Leah knows I'm a pina colada guy. Is that well known? Yeah, Leah knows that. It's my go-to drink. It's also my go-to edible, apparently. Cards met with Malik Willis at the Combine and recently South Dakota QB. Do you guys think just due diligence, Bull Brock, meeting with these QBs?
Sure. And I wouldn't even have a problem if they use one of their 6th or 7th round picks on getting a quarterback. That's fine. I think organization in the NFL, just the way things, it's kind of a revolving door at the quarterback position often, that you probably be a smart organization in bringing in a young quarterback each and every year. So yeah,
Roseman does it in Philadelphia.
Yeah. And he found his next franchise quarterback. I mean, I think he reached in the 2nd round, but now they've got a better contract for a quarterback and probably a brighter future than they did with Carson Wentz, which I don't think anybody envisioned when he signed his extension that was going to go south as it did. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Due diligence, absolutely. I'm never going to,
Malik Willis might end up being in their division for the next 10 years. That I would argue that's why they're doing it, because he could be a Seahawk in a month. So other than that, I can't imagine why. That's why they're doing it.
For sure. At 9th overall, you think Malik Willis, Seattle?
I mean, they got the ammo if they love the kid and they want to go up and trade for him. Hell yeah.
I got
no behind Mr. Drew Lock.
Jason Reed, very just up and coming draft expert. As I said, the Draft Network and now ESPN.com just absolutely crushed it with the 7-round, all 32 team mock draft. Every single pick in this month's draft he did. And I was looking at what he did for the Arizona Cardinals, and it's an interesting strategy, Johnny. And it's not one I completely disagree with. I kind of see the direction he was going. It creates it absolutely creates potentially a strength for this organization, but I don't think it plays to their strength. So this is what Jordan Reid did in his 7-round mock draft for ESPN.com. You got to be an insider for it. So we're taking you kind of behind the velvet rope there. You're welcome. Devonte Wyatt, the guy that we were talking about last segment for Steve Keim, who Daniel Jeremiah said Steve Keim he'd be tickled by that pick, the defensive tackle out of Georgia.
Tickle the big man with another big man.
Roger McCreary, who I've seen projected as a first-round corner out of Auburn. Our guy Frank Sanders would like that pick from his alma mater, going in the second round, 55th overall. Kingsley, how do you pronounce this guy's name? Anagbear?
Yeah.
Anagbear out of South Carolina. So if you're keeping track, that's 3 prospects selected, and every single one of them played in the SEC. I don't think
that's the best part of it.
That's not a bad philosophy. And then he goes off script and he takes his first player out of the SEC. He takes Kyrene Williams, running back out of Notre Dame, which I like. I like Williams. I think he's a dual threat running back. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball between the tackles. I think that he adds some much needed speed to the running back room, because right now James Conner is not. He's kind of more your in between the tackles guy, and Eno Benjamin, he's good, but he's not fleet of foot, the running back position. Kyron Johnson, an edge from Kansas, not a traditional football power, so that one's interesting. Justin Schaefer from Georgia, he's a guard.
Love him. Love that pick.
Jalen Weidenmeyer from Texas A&M, he's a tight end. And then Zacoby McClain, another Auburn Tiger for Frank Sanders to round out the draft class at safety.
Just have the whole Auburn secondary. Why the hell not? Okay.
Go ahead.
You tell me your thoughts first on this.
I think that look, if you're taking 6 out of 8 of your picks and you're getting SEC guys and a Notre Dame guy, I like that he's going, Power 5. I like that he's bringing in, blue chip type prospects. And I think you're just more likely to hit on those guys than taking a big swing at a small school guy. Devonte Wyatt, I don't have a big problem with that pick at 1. McCreary, love it at 2. Think there's an incredible amount of value there. Plus, you look at your cornerback room. I think you're set for a couple of years there with who they have in place right now. Byron Murphy, Jeff Gladney, Marco Wilson. Probably need to add a veteran, though, to show him the ropes. And then, the South Carolina edge rusher, Kingsley, I don't have a problem with that. I think that it creates you're really pushing your chips into the middle of the table on defense, though. Like, there's no wide receiver in this class, so they are going to have to address that in free agency. But it does, I think Vance Joseph, even though he's notorious for not playing his rookies, he's got a lot of fun pieces to work with here.
So that's a perfect mock draft if you substitute the McCreary pick, which I know you like, and I don't dislike the player, for a receiver. Because here's what you're then getting. You're getting a supremely gifted 5-3 technique defensive lineman from the SEC that's an immediate, hopefully 10-year starter up front for you, the next Fletcher Cox of this organization. You take a receiver, somebody of note in the second round, a developmental guy that a lot of people in the chat have been mentioning, the kid from Clemson, the kid from South Alabama, Sky Moore, somebody like that can play outside. The rest of the draft, I mean, outside of the kid from Kansas, the Kingsley is, I have him graded as a late second round pick. That's tremendous value. You get an SEC pass rusher. Yes, please sign me up. I will roll the dice.
Can we see?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think we've got a little bit of video on Kingsley here. Here, I got it pulled up. Look at this explosiveness. He's an outside linebacker, beats the right tackle, boom, force fumble into an interception. Love that. And then Wyatt himself, look at this. Nobody's allowed to move like that at that size. Just destroyed Alabama's offensive line 2 consecutive games. And then McCreary is a nice player. And again, he does something that no Cardinal defensive back currently does. He intercepts the ball, right? Yeah. He's got supremely gifted ball skills, and his return ability is immaculate. I love Byron Murphy. Gladney's, hopefully going to turn into something. Marco Wilson. Those guys are ball hogs at the cornerback position. And what we would say about Buda and Jalen Thompson, not really ball hog safeties. This guy's got he would have the best ball skills of anybody in the Cardinal secondary. I just feel like for what the Cardinals need coming into next season, that's a luxury pick. It would, like, that draft class wouldn't bother me. I love Schaefer, the guard out of Georgia. You get him in the 6th round. That's fantastic value. I would be mad if they would not take a receiver prospect of note on day 3 from the SEC. I use this comparison a lot. I think the Niners got a kid out of Tennessee in the 7th round last year named Jawan Jennings. And he played, and he was a highly touted prospect, couldn't catch on in a busted passing game at Tennessee. What does he go? He goes to San Francisco last year as a rookie and catches touchdown passes from Jimmy G. Like, okay, you don't want to take a receiver in the first 3 rounds. You better, with all of those, flyer picks on day 3, you better take a couple.
For sure. Especially if you set up your wide receiver room to where you know what DeAndre Hopkins can do everything for you, right? And then Rondale Moore is going to have he's going to know what his role is. So you've got a cup, and then Zach Ertz is going to be the middle of the field guy for you at tight end. If you just can turn one of these late round picks, who, as you said, SEC, you got athletes coming out of there. If you could just say, hey, go run deep, just beat your guy. You have just like they did with Antoine Wesley. Like, your role is defined on what we need you to do. You just need to be the best at that. Kyler Murray will find you. And yeah, absolutely. You could hit for the first time in a long time on a 6th or 7th round pick that we've been waiting for as far as making an impact on this roster.
They have this kind of draft real quick. AJ Green's a Cardinal by what? Sunday night. Yeah. You get him on the phone. Right. And I think that for everybody waiting for a move, we would love a move for our programming. We're not going to get anything of note, you would think, until post-draft. Keim has always been historically on the record of saying he wants to get all of his needs filled before draft weekend. With this receiver market and what the Jaguars have done, skewing it with Christian Kirk-Steele, I don't know if that is obtainable this year at that position.
Yeah, I see Pascal Jose talking about him from Kentucky. Technically another SEC guy, right? I mean, Kentucky is indeed in the SEC. They've got some.
And they had a hell of a year last year.
Yeah, they do. They've got 3 legit NFL prospects on that team, as far as the guard Pascal and then the wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson. So that would be an interesting school. I've seen the Arizona Cardinals poking around, having some draft meetings with Pierre Strong, small school guy that had the fastest 40 time, tied for the fastest 40 time for any running back. Because I got to imagine they have to add speed to that running back. I mentioned that earlier in the podcast. I think that just the way that Cliff's run scheme sets up, you've got to have a guy that can get to the outside. Remember against Dallas, Johnny, when they were putting that game away, when they were salting away, they had some plays where they made the guy who just signed with Denver, why can't I think of his name? Randy Gregory looked like he was standing still 3 times. Kyler Murray and Chase Edmonds, they don't have a guy in their running back room right now that can run the option that's fast enough to run the option with Kyler Murray.
And Chase Edmonds was a tremendous receiver out of the backfield too. Like, James Conner's great in spurts with the screen passes, but Chase Edmonds is a natural route runner. He was out of Fordham. He got better at the NFL level. They don't have that on the roster. With all due respect to Benjamin, they are traditional. He and Conner are traditional backs. This kid in this mock draft, Williams out of Notre Dame, his comp is Dion Lewis, former New England Patriot. That would be just what the doctor ordered. And I think we're going to get one of these 6th or 7th round picks to be a running back. That feels like you're playing with house money at that point. You can take a couple if you harken back to this Stephon Taylor, Andre Ellington draft of the Bruce Arians first year in 2013. That would be fine. That position is so interchangeable, but they gave James Conner a heck of a lot of money. So I anticipate him getting 70 to 80% of the snaps based on what they're going to pay him. NFL AZ Cardinals saying, with the Cooper Kupps of the NFL playing all over the place, could we benefit with someone like Dax Hill? He's a safety. He's a versatile safety, secondary player, inside and out, blitz off the edge, very talented. That sounds a hell of a lot like Isaiah Simmons to me, NFL AZ Cardinals. So I would be pro drafting Dax Hill when the Cardinals then find out what they have in Isaiah Simmons and properly how to use him, Bo Brock.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're just going to take his mini Isaiah Simmons, and
give me all the athletes.
And I think Steve Keim, he would tell you that between songs at a Blake Shelton concert, he's like, that's what I want. I want a roster. I want 53 just athletes, and that doesn't work, unfortunately. But
there are positions for a reason, right? You have the athlete monitor coming out of high school because you can play a couple different roles, but they usually squeeze that out of you pretty quickly, especially at a Power 5 school. Why do Keim and Cliff feel like they can reinvent the wheel so much? Pick a position, learn a position, and stick with it.
I don't have a problem if you give Cliff Traylon Burks and you say, hey, he played the slot primarily in college, and Cliff says, well, I see him as this, and let's work him there.
Sure.
I don't have a problem with that. If they've got an idea, But we've seen, the dark side of that. I mean, worse than Isaiah Simmons. We saw it with Hassan Reddick early on. For 3 years, the guy just was a non-impact player in the NFL level. And then they said, okay, let's play to his strength, give him one more chance to prove he deserves to be at this level. Now he's signing a 3-year, $45 million deal as a pass rusher. They wanted him to play stand-up linebacker.
Good times had by all. I want to remind everybody, children 5 and older are eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine is the best tool we have to reduce the chances of getting sick. The vaccine can reduce the risk of being hospitalized or even dying from the disease. It's safe, free, and highly effective, and vaccines are available throughout Arizona. Visit azhealth.gov/find vaccine for a location nearest to you.
Got our guy Damian Anderson back in the fold tomorrow. We'll be talking some more Cardinals football. Big anniversary for one of the key Cardinals going forward tomorrow, Johnny.
Yes.
And we'll continue to get, this is draft season. And
we're in it. We're in the midst of it.
Yep. And we can see everybody in the chat is excited for it. Everybody's got their thoughts on which direction the Arizona Cardinals have to go at 23 and 55 and 87.
What do you think, real quick, before we go? What do you think the last pick the Cardinals made that was universally loved in the first round? Think back, 5, 7 drafts. Everybody loved the pick. I mean, was it Isaiah Simmons? Because I know a lot of the fan base didn't love the Murray pick. Clearly, Zaven Collins last year. I mean, I feel like it's either got to be Simmons or Josh Rosen. People loved that Josh Rosen pick, me included.
Not a lot of people are man enough to admit it. Obviously, hope springs eternal here at this time. I mean, people, as far as this goes, people, they see with the glass half full mentality at the draft, despite even Cliff or Steve Keim's draft resume. Like, even though he hasn't hit that often, people believe that there's going to be the game changer in this draft. And it seems like every year, even with Zaven Collins, there were people that believed that he could be that starting inside linebacker. But I think Isaiah Simmons, people felt like he fell in the lap of the Arizona Cardinals.
I agree with that.
So
people watched that Natty, even though Clemson lost, and he was all over the place. And he had so much freaking momentum. People were saying top 3, player in the draft, even though he wasn't going to be picked in the top 3. I would say the Cardinal fan base universally loved that pick.
We need to talk about this more this offseason, and we'll have time to do it after the draft. But maybe just it's too much drinking the Kool-Aid. But if the last 2 first-round picks pan out, if Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons turn out to be the players that they envision them to be, if they tap into that at all, like, what does that look like? Because I think it's a pretty devastating defense.
Oh, man. Well, I know what Zaven Collins looks like because he's got pro comps. I don't know what an ideal season from Isaiah Simmons looks like, but it better include, a handful of sacks and interceptions. I think that it's easier to project Zaven because he was Anthony Barr to some extent coming out of, where do you go, USC or Notre Dame? I can't remember where Anthony Barr went to school, but he was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, UCLA. And went and had a really nice career as a free agent, coincidentally, for the Minnesota Vikings. That was always my comp and a lot of other people's for Zaven. And so you could argue, is he playing out of position? But I could project. We call Isaiah Simmons the unicorn because we don't know what his ceiling is or his comp is. So, like, theoretically, a lot of people thought, well, he could have 10 sacks at inside linebacker. Well, he hasn't come close to that. We'll know when we see it because he'll have a Pro Bowl, all pro standout season. But until then, I don't know what is ideal.
Yeah, it's fair. It really is tough to project because when you see the versatile players, they're usually coming more from the back end of the defense up, like a Derwin James, and it's tough to say, hey, well, I mean, if he's going to play like at that level, I think he's too big. But
everybody wants to move him to safety. They have good safeties. They need a good inside linebacker. That's why they took him once upon a time. I want to remind everybody, be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. Go become a member at gophnx.com. Hang with Bo and I in the member Discord. 50 cents for the first month, $8.99 for the subsequent months, or you could cop yourself a free PHNX t-shirt like this one here for just under $60 for the entire year. For access to everything at gophnx.com. We've got some phenomenal prospect exclusive content, hopefully coming your way later this week as we continue our build up, Mr. Bo Brock toward the NFL draft for my counterpart, Mr. Bo Brock, at Twitter. I'm Johnny Venerable. We'll see you tomorrow.